It is Sunday, December 4th. Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. Hello, I'm Stephanie Guadian. Thank you for being with us tonight. For the next half hour, we're going to take a look at sexual harassment in the workplace. An ABC poll shows 60% of women say that they have been a victim. Just this past week, the Guadian County Treasurer, David Gutierrez, lost his job after a jury found him guilty of offering an employee $1,000 for sex. He claimed that he was paying her a compliment. Both ended up in a courtroom. We want to hear from you tonight. You can email us your comments and your questions right now to ABC-7 Extra at KVIA.com. You can also reach us by calling 915-496-1771, and you can tweet me at Guadian ABC7. Just use the hashtag ABC7 Extra so I can find you. Well, here is what former Guadian Treasurer David Gutierrez had to say when he took the stand to explain his actions.
You know, she was an attractive woman, and if worse came to worse, that anybody would give her $1,000 for a couple of hours in the privacy of a hotel room. I thought it was like a compliment to her. She didn't take it like I expected her to. She didn't laugh or nothing. She told me, you know, I'm not that kind of a woman, and I immediately realized that I had crossed the line.
Gutierrez said he believed the employee, Olivia Nunez, had money problems, and he knew that she was going through a divorce. He told the jury he felt sorry for her and he wanted to make her feel better. ABC-7's Jamie Warren was there when the verdict came down.
After 2.5 hours of deliberation here inside the courtroom, David Gutierrez is no longer Guadian County Treasurer. He had nothing to say once the verdict was read. His family was with him. They appeared very upset, but the victim in this case, Olivia Nunez, she was smiling and seemed very excited.
We find the defendant guilty of corruption in office or gross immorality by a public officer. And this is the verdict, Mr. Foreperson. And based on the finding of guilt, you shall be and hereby are removed from the office of Guadian County Treasurer.
I don't know what to say. I'm just really happy.
He tried to pass it off as a joke, tried to say that he was a hypothetical, some guy would like to do that with you, but the jury believed Olivia.
Mr. Gutierrez, do you feel like they were right to find you guilty? Was there anything that you wanted to say to your constituents? Do you think the verdict was a reflection of the atmosphere in the Treasurer's office?
I'm also happy about the jury's verdict because it sends a message that as a public officer, you are held to a high standard, and committing grossly immoral acts and corruption in office is not acceptable.
The jury ended up awarding Ms. Nunez $68,000. Joining me now, my guest tonight, Guadian County Manager Julia Brown and Melissa Libenes. She's the president of the El Paso Society for Human Resource Management. I want to thank you both very much for being with us tonight. Julia, I want to start with you. Your reaction to the accusations against Mr. Gutierrez and then what happened in the courtroom.
Well, we actually have been pursuing this matter to try to have him removed from office since he committed this act in August of 2014.
Yeah, and you felt very strongly about this.
Absolutely.
This was not something that was going to be accepted.
No, it's sexual discrimination. It's sexual harassment. It's a violation of Title 7 of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And the county offers sexual harassment training annually for all employees. It's mandatory. We can't mandate elected officials to take it, but we encourage them to take it, and every other elected official except Mr. Gutierrez has always attended the training.
Did he ever attend the training?
No.
Now, he, at least to the jury, tried to play this off as this was some sort of joke. I would ask you, that's not an excuse.
Absolutely not. It's not an excuse. Anytime that an individual says something that's inappropriate of a sexual nature, then the individual who is on the receiving end, if that behavior is unwelcome, it then becomes a violation.
Are there hard rules about what is harassment? Because sexual harassment, how do you define it?
Well, it becomes sexual harassment when it's unwelcome and of a sexual nature, when it's made either implicitly or explicitly as a term or a condition of the individual's employment, or when it adversely impacts them. Also, if it creates a hostile working environment and prevents them from doing their job. And it can be quid pro quo, where it's this for that, or it might be, again, where it's, if it's something pervasive. And then it depends on how egregious it is.
Julie, you made a point earlier that it doesn't necessarily have to be comments made towards you for you to be offended. It could just be someone who hears them.
That's correct.
And in that case, would you also recommend that that person come forward to report?
We always encourage employees to come forward and report these things so that they can be corrected and action can be taken to correct them. The egregious thing about the situation with the treasurer was that even after this verdict, you see his reaction. He still seems to think that it was okay to do this, that he didn't do anything wrong. He has not shown any remorse. He hasn't apologized to the employee. He hasn't apologized to the county, to his constituents, and it's outrageous.
And this is another reason why the training is so important, right? Because, I mean, I've been an employee at a few corporations, and everyone goes through it, and they really do spell it out for you, what is acceptable and what is not, and maybe enlightens quite a few folks who don't know that they're partaking in this.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about the victim in this case. She waited about 36 hours to come forward?
About that.
Yeah. Did she tell you her emotions as she was going through this?
Well, she indicated that she was so shocked and so upset when this happened. She actually went home sick for the rest of the day and only worked part of the following day. And when confronted by Mr. Gutierrez when she returned to work, she burst into tears and then went to tell her supervisor what had happened. The treasurer tried to get the employee and the chief deputy treasurer not to report it. He tried to cover it up.
Wow. And you learned about this?
Yes. Because fortunately, neither the employee nor his then chief deputy were intimidated by his efforts to rake it under the rug and to, at one point, he told them that he forbade them to go and report it.
Yeah. Do you really think that maybe had he had gone to those training sessions that he would not have been in this position?
Well, possibly. Some people, even when they go to training, are just determined to do something that is illegal. As an example, during the course of the investigation after this happened, employees told the investigator that when they returned from the training that he refused to go to, he said something to the effect of, well, now that you all have gone to the training and you know what sexual harassment is, do I still have a job?
And laughed about it.
And laughed about it.
Yeah.
So,
I do not think he is laughing now. We still have a lot to talk about. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. When we come back, how women who fall victim to sexual harassment in the workplace can become part of the solution. You're watching ABC-7 Extra, where news comes first. Remember, you can always call our comment line, 915-496-1771, and you can email us right now, ABC7Extra at KVIA.com. You can also tweet me, Guadian, ABC7. Just use the hashtag ABC7Extra. We're back right after the break.
more than 3 times. And then a shocking drop in hands. How many of you filed an HR request against your harasser? Statistics show that 70% of women who experience workplace sexual harassment never report it. Why? The fear of job retaliation. Jenny Yang leads the federal commission tasked with investigating and litigating charges of workplace harassment. She says gender-based put-downs can also be a form of sexual harassment because it's harassment based on one's gender.
Sexual harassment is very much about power, but sexual harassment does not always involve propositioning. It can involve demeaning comments, crude language.
And a message from our forum of women in the workplace that part of the solution may lie within us.
I'm raising my voice because I want to be an agent of change.
To encourage other young women that they too can take a stand.
To break out of silence. I'm speaking out against sexual harassment because it exists.
Because it even exists.
Because it exists, and it shouldn't.
And welcome back to ABC-7 Xtra. Joining me again is Doñana County Manager Julia Brown and Melissa Libinas, the president of the El Paso Society for the Human Resource Management. Thank you both again. Melissa, tell us just a little bit more about your group.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. We are an affiliate of the Society for Human Resources Management. There are 575,000 chapters across the nation. We are the chapter in El Paso. And we are comprised of a group of HR professionals. We meet once a month and we discuss various topics. We might have legislative updates. Last month we had our monthly luncheon where we did active shooter training, and we just want to ensure that we're keeping abreast of the laws and that we are meeting with professionals in the community. We have a very diverse group. Our members we have about 250 members, and they're comprised in all industries. We have local government, the city, the county, as well as the hospitals, the banks.
And really your job is to make sure that they understand what the laws are and so that they can educate their employees. And before we go any further, I want to make sure and point out we posted this story on Facebook, and a gentleman posted a comment and said, you know, hey, make sure that you tell everyone it's not just women who can be victims in this case. Sometimes it can be men, and it doesn't always just involve a man and a woman, right?
That's absolutely right. There's same gender, and so it could be female and female, male and male, woman harassing a male, and so it's all encompassing.
How often, Julia, do you have the training at the county?
We do it annually.
And you suggest 2 years, or that's how often you see companies do it usually?
Annually is ideal. 2 years, making that mandatory is a good best practice. Making sure that the organization already has a policy in place, that they make this policy available to employees, that they inform and educate them, and as part of onboarding, that they provide this training ideally before they even set foot into the work site, so that they're completely aware. They're aware of the laws, of their rights, of the mechanisms set in place to report. Who can they report that to? It may be another employee who does the harassment. They can report that up the chain to a supervisor, a manager, human resources. Others in local government may have, it might be civil service, or they may have an association. And in these cases, it's important for the individual to know that they have somebody that they can report this to. What constitutes sexual harassment, unwelcome behavior, giving them examples and just informing them that we take this very seriously, and these are the steps that you can take to ensure that this doesn't occur.
But we just heard in that ABC report that 70% of women said that this had happened to said they did not report it to their superiors, and we heard a variety of reasons why. What do you say to those women to give them confidence that, or men out there, that it's okay to come forward?
Well, in the case of the county, we have a zero tolerance policy toward any kind of discrimination, sexual harassment included, and against retaliation in the workplace. It's imperative to report this, especially in the case of sexual harassment. If you don't articulate to the harasser that this is unwelcome, if you don't report it to the employer so that corrective action can be taken, then it's likely that this person will think that you're okay with it, and they'll keep saying or doing it.
Yeah, if you don't put a stop to it, you can accept that that's probably what you're going to come into.
That's right.
You know, every day at work. Have we seen some changes in the laws over time when it comes to sexual harassment?
I wouldn't say changes in the laws, but the individuals are becoming more aware. Employers are letting them know, look, please make sure that you tell the harasser that it's unwelcome. If you're not able to, if you're unable to, or if you're uncomfortable, then this is, other mechanisms set in place.
Okay, so let me just stop you right there. So people don't necessarily have to confront the person themselves first. It would be okay to go to an HR person and let them know what is happening, so they don't have to have that the confrontation
and then
one-on-one.
Supervisors and managers should be trained on spotting harassment, preventing it, and making sure that they do something about it. So aside from having the policy, it's very important. Like she said, there's a zero tolerance policy, actually making sure that they're punished when this behavior occurs.
Are you surprised at some folks who just don't understand their behavior is considered sexual harassment?
Well, they may fear retaliation, not knowing that that's also another aspect of the law, that is illegal. And many times, somebody may report a behavior, and even if that behavior is not substantiated, if they retaliate against that individual, there can be even higher penalties for that. So it's very important for them to be aware that they have rights and that there are mechanisms set in place where they can report it and that it is important that they do so.
Okay. Julia, moving forward at the county, have you any lessons learned during this whole experience moving forward?
Well, we hope that a lot of people learned lessons. First of all, nobody, even elected officials, are above the law. That's the prime lesson. And the lesson for employees is to realize that we are going to keep after this when it happens to make sure that something does happen, to put a stop to it and to correct the action and to keep it from happening again.
And the county was pretty adamant about having him removed from office. The victim in this case, she was awarded $68,000, but how did it happen that he was actually removed from office?
Well, there are actually 3 ways that an elected official at the county level in New Mexico can be removed from office. Either by recall petition, so our recall election, being convicted of a felony, or in this case, being convicted of a civil offense, which is malfeasance or misfeasance in office. In this case, it was being found guilty of gross immorality or corruption in office.
Did he have to pay the $68,000?
Well, the employee filed a lawsuit against the treasurer and against the county because he's a county official. The $68,000 was a settlement of the lawsuit. We have actually filed a lawsuit against him to recover the money that the county had to pay out because of his wrongdoing.
Okay, we do have a caller that we want to go ahead and take. Go ahead, caller.
I have a question for the city manager, Doniana. It was in the trial. I was astonished at the way Mr. Gutierrez acted. He was even showing somewhat arrogance in the courtroom too. I had an incident where a male charge nurse opened the bathroom door I was in without knocking, and when he opened it, I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, it's not like something I haven't seen before." And I did not proceed with it any further other than I quit my job because of it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for calling and sharing your story. I'm sorry that that happened to you, but boy, it just really reminds you of how many different forms sexual harassment can take. You heard his testimony. Were you also surprised at Mr. Gutierrez's, what she called arrogance?
Not as surprised, because throughout this whole ordeal, as I said, he's shown no remorse. He hasn't apologized. Right after it happened, when he was confronted by county officials, he immediately confessed to having done it. And then in the ensuing months, he tried to change his story, tried to move around, tried to back off that, tried to blame the employee for it, and then had this ridiculous testimony that he was trying to give her a compliment or he was trying to make a joke. Well, nobody thinks it's funny, and that kind of behavior certainly is not something that women find to be complimentary.
Yeah, and we should mention that she still does have her job with the county.
She does. She is a very fine employee of the county.
Yeah, and we had Jamie Warren covering the trial, and she was very relieved and happy, I believe, with the outcome.
Well, we all feel vindicated by it because we knew that it was wrong, and sometimes justice comes slowly.
But it came. All right, we're going to be right back. We're going to take a quick break. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. Still ahead, we're going to take more of your comments and calls. We'll be right back.
Contacted EEOC. That was a good thing that they did, and unfortunately there are some cases that cannot be proven, and maybe in this case this person didn't feel that they received the proper remedy, but it is very important that it be looked into and that training be provided, that policies be put in place, an anti-harassment policy, and ensuring that the employees are educated. Many times they're just not aware of their rights. It may be that they're new to the it's maybe their first job, and they just may not be aware, and so it's very important that the employers show how important and how seriously they take it.
And you could really hear the emotion in her voice. And Julie, this is something that you said that you also heard in the victim's case with Mr. Gutierrez. I mean, she was really shell-shocked.
Yes, she was for some time after this. Now, we talked earlier about the large percentage of women or victims who don't report this. Very often people want to make anonymous complaints. Anonymous complaints can't be prosecuted. You have to come forward and say who you are and who has done this to you. Because the person who is being accused of doing this has to have the right to defend themselves against it. It doesn't happen often, but every once in a while someone makes a false complaint against somebody because they're mad about something or because they want to get back at them. In order for the complaint to be fully investigated, we have to have the names of the individuals involved. In this particular case, because it involved an elected official, and we wanted to avoid any claim down the road that there had not been a full and fair investigation, we hired an outside investigator. So it was not a county employee investigating it.
How often would you say something like this happens at the county? Claims of sexual harassment?
We don't get claims of, well, I've been there for 3 years, and I would say in the 3 years that I have been there, I probably have heard 2, this one included.
Okay. Final thoughts for the audience out there on this topic? Advice for folks who may find themselves in this position?
Whether the harassment is being directed against you or it's being directed against a coworker, you observe something, you should report it. It's really critical that the employer be made aware of it so that they can take corrective action and they can stop it.
And again, they can't do anything, the employer, unless they know about it.
Absolutely. And I would like to say that we had a situation come up where we did find that it wasn't true and that employee was terminated.
All right, so it can work both ways. All right, ladies, thank you so much for talking on this subject. I appreciate it, staying up late with us on this Sunday evening. And thank you for watching. You've been watching ABC 7 Extra. Have a great week ahead. We'll see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.